I've lived long enough to watch society change in ways that I never imagined possible. Some changes have made life easier, while others have quietly chipped away at the very foundation of how human beings connect with one another. One of the biggest changes I've witnessed has been in the dating world. What once seemed like a beginning of building a future together now often feels like a financial negotiation before two people have even gotten to know each other. It's painful to watch because I remember when dating actually had a purpose beyond entertainment and expensive nights out. Back when I was younger, dating wasn't about impressing someone with how much money you were willing to spend. It wasn't about proving your financial worth before your character even had a chance to speak. Dating was simply the process of discovering whether two people were compatible enough to move towards something meaningful. It was the first step in building trust, friendship, commitment, and eventually marriage. There was a destination in mind. Today, from everything I've observed, that destination seems to have disappeared for many people. Now I see many young men entering a dating market where they're expected to spend heavily before they've even earned genuine interest from the women sitting across the table. Before any emotional connection is formed, before loyalty has been shown, before trust has been established, the wallet has already become the center of attention. That's a dangerous shift because when money becomes the foundation of attraction, everything else becomes secondary. I'm not saying every woman operates this way because that simply wouldn't be true. There are still women with integrity, character, and long-term goals who want to build a peaceful life with a good man. But anyone paying attention can also see a growing culture where some women openly measure a man's value by what he's willing to spend. That's not dating. That's evaluating purchasing power. As someone who has watched several generations come and go, I can't ignore what my own eyes continue to show me. Social media has amplified attitudes that once remained hidden. What used to be private expectations are now proudly displayed as public demands. Instead of asking whether two people are compatible, many conversations begin with questions about vacations, luxury restaurants, designer gifts, cash transfers, and expensive lifestyles. Somewhere along the way, character lost ground to consumption. Years ago, when two people decided to spend time together, they were trying to learn who the other person truly was. Conversation mattered, family values mattered, work ethic mattered, faithfulness mattered, emotional maturity mattered. These qualities helped determine whether the relationship deserved another step forward. Dating wasn't supposed to become a permanent lifestyle. It was designed to reveal whether two people should continue toward courtship, engagement, and ultimately marriage. Every stage had a purpose. Every conversation was supposed to uncover whether two people could build something that would survive life's hardships together. Today, I've watched many relationships begin with expectations that have little to do with building anything lasting. Before a man is even allowed to know whether genuine interest exists, he's often expected to finance experiences that benefit someone who may already have decided she has no intention of seeing him again after that evening ends. That's pathetic. That's what troubles me the most. When someone accepts expensive dinners, entertainment, shopping trips, and lavish treatment without any sincere interest in building something real, it starts to resemble a business arrangement more than a beginning of a relationship. No promises are made, no future is discussed, the investment becomes completely one-sided. Young men need to ask themselves difficult questions before reaching for their wallets. Am I investing in someone who sees me as a potential life partner, or am I simply financing another enjoyable weekend? Am I being appreciated for who I am, or am I only valuable because of what I can provide today? One of the biggest changes I've witnessed has been the influence of social media. It has created an environment where attention itself has become a form of currency. The more attention someone receives, the more valuable they may begin to feel, and that attention often translates into financial opportunities from admirers seeking validation. Many people now document nearly every part of their lives for strangers to observe. Privacy has become uncommon. Mystery has almost disappeared. Instead of allowing attraction to grow naturally through conversation and shared experiences, everything is placed on display before two people even meet. What concerns me isn't simply the technology itself, it's the mindset that sometimes grows alongside it. When appearances become more important than substance, relationships begin to reflect those priorities. Physical beauty becomes heavily marketed, while character quietly fades into the background. Young men are constantly exposed to images that stimulate desire while encouraging impulsive decisions. Attractive pictures, carefully edited videos, and glamorous lifestyles can easily convince someone that spending money is the quickest path toward affection. Unfortunately, affection purchased through financial performance often disappears the moment someone else offers more. That's why emotional discipline has become more valuable than ever before. A man who cannot control his desires becomes easy to manipulate. Once someone discovers what motivates him emotionally, they can often predict exactly how to separate him from his money. I've often said that one of the greatest strengths a man can develop is self-control. Not because attraction is wrong, but because attraction without wisdom has emptied many bank accounts and broken many hearts. Desire has always existed, but today's environment constantly encourages people to make emotional decisions before logical ones. Some young men become so captivated by physical beauty that they ignore obvious warning signs. They overlook disrespect because she's attractive. They excuse selfish behavior because she's beautiful. They ignore manipulation because they are hoping she'll eventually change. Meanwhile, every expensive dinner, every unexpected bill, every financial favor slowly becomes normal. If someone is genuinely interested in building a future with you, they won't measure your worth only by your ability to spend money. They'll want to know your values, your vision, your discipline, your integrity, and your character. They'll appreciate your presence before they expect your provisions. A relationship built upon financial performance eventually becomes exhausting. The man feels pressure to constantly produce while receiving very little emotional security in return. Over time, he begins questioning whether he's loved as a human being or simply appreciated as a source of income. That's why discernment matters. Slow down, observe, listen more than you speak. Watch how someone treats people who have nothing to offer them. Notice whether gratitude exists. Pay attention to consistency instead of charm. Character always reveals itself over time. One thing I've noticed about many thoughtful men today is that they're becoming increasingly protective of their peace. That's not because they've given up on love. It's because they've learned that unnecessary chaos carries an emotional price that's often greater than any financial loss. Men have worked hard to build stable lives. They've developed careers, businesses, hobbies, routines, and personal discipline. They've discovered that peace has tremendous value. Once a man understands that, he becomes much more selective about who he allows into his private world. A peaceful life shouldn't be confused with loneliness. Solitude can provide clarity that constant emotional confusion never could. It allows a man to evaluate people based on their actions instead of their appearance. It gives him room to grow without constantly defending his purpose against unnecessary distractions. I've also observed that many young men are beginning to recognize patterns that previous generations accepted without question. They're asking themselves whether every relationship truly adds value to their lives. They're becoming less willing to ignore manipulation simply because someone is physically attractive. That's not weakness, that's maturity developing through observation. The greatest mistake any man can make is believing that beauty automatically equals good character. Beauty can certainly capture attention, but only character can sustain a healthy relationship through the storms of life. External appearances always change with time. Integrity, loyalty, honesty, kindness, and mutual respect are the qualities that remain standing long after youthful appearances begin to fade. That's why I encourage every young man watching this changing world to never confuse attraction with compatibility. One can spark your emotions, the other determines your future. If you fail to understand the difference, someone else may gladly profit from your confusion while leaving you with nothing more than an empty wallet, valuable lessons, and the realization that what looked like romance was never really about love in the first place. One thing age has given me is perspective. I've seen enough seasons of life to know that some lessons cost far more than money. A man can recover financially after making a poor decision, but recovering emotionally after repeated disappointment can take years. That's why I encourage younger men to slow down before allowing their emotions to make permanent decisions. I've watched too many situations where a man believes he's investing in the beginning of a beautiful relationship, while the woman already knows she's simply enjoying another free weekend. She accepts the expensive dinner. She smiles through the conversation. She takes the photographs. She enjoys the luxury experience. Then the phone suddenly grows quiet once the evening is over because another man is already waiting to finance the next outing. If this happens once, a man may simply call it bad luck. But when it happens repeatedly to thousands of men, it begins to reveal a pattern that deserves serious discussion. Somewhere along the line, dating stopped being about discovering compatibility and started becoming a revolving door of temporary financial opportunities for women who have no intention of building anything permanent. That's why I tell young men not to become so desperate for female attention that they lose respect for themselves. Desperation clouds judgment. It causes a man to ignore warning signs that would otherwise be obvious. Once a woman realizes a man fears being alone more than he values his own peace, she has tremendous power to manipulate his decisions if her intentions are not honorable. A man should never feel pressured into proving his worth through constant spending. His value should already exist before his wallet ever opens. If someone cannot appreciate his mind, his discipline, his kindness, his consistency, and his vision for the future, then no amount of money will ever buy genuine respect. I've also noticed another disturbing trend that seems to grow stronger every year. Many people have become experts at creating attractive appearances while neglecting the development of their character. Everything is designed to impress at first glance, yet very little effort is placed into becoming someone capable of maintaining a healthy, peaceful relationship. Social media rewards appearances. It rewards attention. It rewards performance. But real relationships reward honesty, patience, sacrifice, communication, and mutual respect. Those qualities rarely go viral because they're developed quietly over time. I've watched young men become hypnotized by carefully crafted online images that have little connection to everyday reality. They mistake popularity for virtue. They confuse physical beauty with emotional maturity. They assume confidence equals integrity. Then reality eventually introduces them to someone completely different from the image they believed they were pursuing. That's why I often remind people that beauty can attract your eyes, while character determines whether your life becomes peaceful or miserable. A beautiful face cannot solve dishonesty. A perfect figure cannot replace loyalty. Expensive fashion cannot hide selfishness forever. Eventually, the true personality always steps forward. As an older man, looking from the outside, I find it amazing how much energy many people invest into looking valuable while spending so little time becoming valuable. Real value isn't measured by followers, attention, designer labels, or expensive lifestyles. Real value appears in how someone treats people when there are no cameras recording the moment. One of the greatest traps facing young men today is confusing loneliness with love. Those two things couldn't be more different. A lonely man often accepts treatment he would normally reject because he believes having someone is better than having no one. That's exactly where manipulation often begins. A person who recognizes emotional hunger can easily use it to influence someone else's decisions. They know compliments create attachment. They know physical attraction weakens discernment. They know attention can become addictive when someone isn't emotionally grounded. That's why mastering your own emotions has become one of the greatest investments any man can make. When you're comfortable with your own company, you're less likely to tolerate someone who enters your life only to create confusion, unnecessary expense, and emotional instability. I've noticed many men reaching a point where they no longer fear being single. Some people criticize that decision without understanding what led them there. It's not always bitterness. Many simply refuse to exchange peace for constant emotional conflict. They've learned through experience that protecting their mental well-being is just as important as protecting their finances. Being alone for a season while building your purpose is far better than constantly surrounding yourself with people who quietly drain your energy and your wallet. Peace isn't something to apologize for. It's something to protect. One reality that concerns me is how normalized it has become for some people to expect strangers to finance lifestyles they've never earned themselves. Somehow, a growing number of men have been conditioned to believe generosity must come before trust has ever been established. Think about that for a moment. Two people barely know each other, yet one person immediately becomes financially responsible for creating an unforgettable experience while receiving absolutely no commitment in return. That's an arrangement that benefits only one side. Again, I'm not speaking about sincere relationships where two people naturally care for one another and willingly invest in each other's happiness. That's completely different. Mutual generosity grows naturally when two people are genuinely building together. What concerns me is the growing expectation that a man must continually prove himself financially simply to remain in consideration. Relationships shouldn't resemble job interviews where every date becomes another expensive audition for approval. If someone loses interest because you refuse to overspend on a first meeting, perhaps you've learned something valuable before making a much larger investment. Sometimes rejection isn't punishment. Sometimes, and oftentimes, it's protection. Even as I speak honestly about what I've observed, I refuse to ignore an important truth. There are still many good women walking this earth. There are women who aren't interested in exploiting anyone. There are women who still believe in loyalty, partnership, sacrifice, modesty, respect, and building something meaningful that can last for decades and a lifetime. Those women often become overlooked because the loudest voices on social media usually receive the greatest attention. Noise has a way of drowning out quiet excellence. Meanwhile, many quality women are simply living their lives without constantly demanding attention from strangers. That's why young men should avoid becoming cynical. Don't assume every woman has bad intentions simply because you've encountered a few who did. Keep your standards high without allowing bitterness to poison your outlook. Discernment and resentment aren't the same thing. When you finally meet someone whose actions consistently match her words, you'll recognize the difference almost immediately. She won't constantly test your wallet. She'll invest her time, her encouragement, her honesty, and her effort just as willingly as you invest yours. Healthy relationships don't leave one person exhausted while the other continually benefits. They create balance, they create stability, they create growth for both people involved. If I could sit across the table from every young man beginning his journey through today's dating world, I'd tell him something that experience has taught me repeatedly. Never allow your hormones to become smarter than your common sense. Physical attraction is powerful, yes it is, but it becomes dangerous when it completely overrides discernment. Take your time getting to know people. Observe how they live when they believe nobody important is watching. Listen carefully to what they celebrate. Pay attention to how they handle disappointment. Watch how they treat those who cannot offer them anything in return. Those small moments reveal far more than glamorous photographs ever will. Build yourself before trying to build a relationship. Develop your discipline. Strengthen your finances. Improve your health. Deepen your faith. Expand your knowledge. Discover your purpose. A man grounded in purpose becomes much harder to manipulate because he already knows what direction his life is moving in. Most importantly, don't allow society to shame you into lowering your standards. There's nothing wrong with protecting your peace. There's nothing wrong with saying no. There's nothing wrong with walking away from situations that feel one-sided from the very beginning. Every no you give to the wrong person creates space for the right one to eventually appear. Looking across the landscape of modern dating, I can't help but notice that many people are searching for temporary pleasure while ignoring permanent purpose. They chase experiences instead of commitment, attention instead of character, and luxury instead of loyalty. Those choices may feel exciting for a season, but they rarely build the kind of foundation that can withstand the storms of life. I've reached a point where appearances impress me far less than integrity. I've learned that peaceful evenings are worth more than expensive drama. I've learned that genuine conversation has greater value than carefully crafted images. Most of all, I've learned that a relationship should multiply your strength, not steadily drain your spirit. My hope is that younger men begin asking better questions before giving away their time, energy, emotions, and hard-earned money. Instead of asking, "Is she beautiful?" perhaps they should ask, "Is she trustworthy?" Instead of asking, "Does she attract attention?" they should ask, "Can she help build a peaceful future?" Those answers will shape a man's life far more than physical attraction ever will. The greatest investment a man can ever make isn't found in an expensive first date or a luxury vacation designed to impress someone he barely knows. It's found in developing wisdom, patience, discernment, and self-respect. Those qualities cannot be stolen, manipulated, or taken away by someone whose only interest was that she could receive. Society may continue changing, and the dating landscape may continue becoming more transactional in many corners of our culture. But character will never go out of style. Integrity will never become outdated. Loyalty will never lose its value. As long as those qualities still exist in the world, there will always be hope for those willing to look beyond appearances and patiently build something that's rooted in truth instead of temporary gratification. I hope these viewpoints have enlightened many unsuspecting young men out here to move wisely and not be taken advantage of. All women are not manipulative gold diggers, but these perspectives will protect you from those who are. I hope you've learned something in this expression, and I'm glad you're here. And if you've listened to this part of it, you hung in there, and I know you got something out of it. Leave your comments below. I'd love to hear from you. And if you want me to continue with content like this, I'll gladly do it. Much love to you all. LanceScurv out. On to the next one. And as always, peace.